Look, I was just saying, how much is it down to Thomas Tuchel? You know, those brave substitutions, the brave selection in the first instance, perhaps. Is that why the FA hired him, do you think?
Yeah, no, it was a very good night for him. Obviously, the victory is the most important, but I think it was a good night for him in the respect of, particularly, I think, from half-time onwards. First half, that Anthony Barry interview that you mentioned was very punchy. I think I described it last night, and I think that they obviously weren't happy with what happened in the first half. There was maybe a little bit of lack of control from moving away from the business, from the game plan. But in the second half, look, I think the way in which England played in that first 10, 15 minutes of the second half, it was probably the best 10, 15 minutes we've seen from any team in the tournament so far. That's not to get carried away, because I know there's a long way to go, and, you know, a game of football isn't over 10 or 15 minutes. But I thought when England were 3-2 up, you don't see many managers making that sort of what would be those types of substitutions. The volume of substitutions, three of them all at once, but also putting Jude Bellingham back into central midfield alongside Elliot Anderson was a really attacking move, and not many managers would do that. They might take a step back in the game to be able to go forward and just sort of what would be not protect what they've got, but be a little bit more sort of risk averse. It was really brave. It was a good night for him. The team in the second half were fantastic. It was a good performance. And like I say, they've got things that they'll need to basically work on from the first half. The two goals that will have been conceded will have unnerved them a little bit. I think that it will make Thomas Tuchel adjust for maybe games 2 and 3, and make him think slightly differently about how he sort of maybe plays that defence and how he looks at protecting them. But yeah, it was a good night overall. And Thomas Tuchel obviously had a great game, particularly from half time onwards. And what he said to them at half time, we don't know, but it will have been quite sort of forceful, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, the funny thing is, it feels like we can't second guess him at all, not even with his team selection in terms of his substitution, what he's going to do, his in-game management. I do want to talk to you about that punchy display from Anthony Barry that you called it, because I just want to ask you how the players would have felt after, perhaps even, they wouldn't have heard it at half-time perhaps, but after hearing it after the game, what would they have felt after that, do you think?
Look, when obviously I was on ITV, and when Mark Pugac, who was presenting the programme, said we're going to throw to Anthony Barry now, the England assistant manager, there was two things came into my mind straight away. One was, why is the assistant manager doing an interview at half time? It's quite unusual. And secondly, usually it would be just the vanilla stuff that basically sort of doesn't say much, you know, a little bit odd. But look, I thought it was very good. I mean, very good for us in the sense it gave us an insight into the, I'm not going to say anger in the England coaching camp about the first half, but certainly the fact that they weren't happy. You know, he was very direct. He was quite blunt. You know, I appreciated it from a point of view of listening to it. It was very good. And I think those players, particularly the likes of Declan Rice, Harry Kane, Jude Bellingham, they're experienced enough to be able to understand that this is elite level football, and England are there to win the World Cup. And it's not about basically hearing things that you want to hear all the time. So I don't think they'll have a problem with it at all. It obviously helps when you go out in the second half and win. If England had lost the game at the end and then they'd look back and look at that, it might have been slightly different. But, you know, there was honesty. It was authentic, the words from Anthony Barry. He was quite, I won't say he was critical, but he was certainly very direct about the fact that England didn't quite do what they should have done in the first half. But that was obvious to most of us. You know, England were the better team in the first half. They looked most dangerous. They looked like a real threat when they were particularly counter-attacking at speed, and those lads were running forward like they were. But obviously there were times when they looked a little bit chaotic at the back and they were all over the place. So, yeah, I thought they got control of that half-time. The second half was so much better. It was a really good performance.
Yeah, you talked about them being chaotic at the back at times. Do you expect any changes at the back four for the Ghana game?
I do expect changes. You know, they've got Semenyo, they've got obviously Brandon Thomas Asante, they've got players, Ghana, who can play one-on-one, who are mobile. So I do think Gay coming in makes sense. Maybe Jed Spence as well. Thought Jed Spence when he came on was excellent. I don't think John Stones will play every single game and play every 3 or 4 days. He's got very good experience. I think there'll be a place for him in the tournament, and there was last night. But I do think we could see Gay come in, being someone I think who can handle one-on-one situations a little bit more, and the physicality of the sort of running of the Ghanaians. And I think that Jed Spence is someone who, again, will play a big part in this tournament, whether it's right back or left back, because I do think he's he's like a leech when he defends. He's someone who's very aggressive in his work, and he has got a great sort of tenacity about him. He also went very, forward very well last night when he came on and nearly scored. So I do think there will be some tweaks in the defence. There was debating that with Roy and Ian Wright this morning about whether there are going to be one or two changes in the defensive line. I actually think there might be. Roy and Ian weren't as sure.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like I say, I don't think we can second guess Thomas Tuchel at all. What about Jude Bellingham? I mean, it felt like he had a very, very good game. Do you think he's ended the number 10 debate?
Yeah, that's what I said last night. I think that he is a superstar. He's someone who I think, Justin, it was interesting watching him in the tunnel before the game and just sort of just look so relaxed, like he belongs, like this is something that basically he does every single day very easily. And it's hard to be like that. I played for England for a lot of years, and the pressure going into the first game of a tournament for England, particularly when the expectation is high on him, and there's been a lot of questions around him over the last 12 months about whether him and Thomas Tuchel get on, whether he's going to be in the team. I thought he was excellent last night. I really did. Whether he was playing in that number 10 role, whether he was playing sort of a little bit deeper towards the end. Yeah, he was outstanding and arguably England's best player. But yeah, end the debate. I don't want to be disrespectful because I think Morgan Rogers will play a big part in this tournament, and I think he's fantastic. And he's slightly different than Jude Bellingham. But there's no doubt Jude Bellingham has to start. I said before the tournament, he's not a sub him. He's someone who basically is someone who has to be in that first 11.
Yeah, I hear you. What about Harry Kane then? Obviously, after his 2 goals, Gary Lineker's labelled him as England's greatest striker. Do you agree with that?
Yes. Yeah, the word striker is important. If you just said greatest forward, I would then bring Wayne Rooney into it. But striker, goal scorer, yeah, I think with what he's done now, 81 goals is just phenomenal. We were talking a lot about him before the game last night, and I've always described Harry Kane as gold. Rock solid. You know exactly what you're going to get. He's unbreakable from a mentality perspective. His goal record at Bayern Munich, I think it's 146 goals in 147 games. That is, I mean, it's unreal. We're at the levels there of obviously Messi and Ronaldo. So yeah, I think that that's something that's he's well worthy of that sort of what would be accolade. There's some great strikers who've played for England over the last 100 years, but he is so special. And he's genuinely, I do believe, right now, the only world-class player we have. And when I'm talking about world class, I'm talking about putting it up there, that level of sort of like the elite. So it's very difficult to get into that category. We've got potential of Declan Rice, of Jude Bellingham, who I think can be world class in their positions and be world class over the next 4, 5, 6 years. But Harry Kane is there. He's absolutely sort of on top of that mountain right now.
Do you think other teams have got more world-class players then?
Maybe there's a couple more, maybe there's a couple of teams that have got, maybe France, maybe Spain, Portugal have got, I think, a couple of world-class players. But collectively, England are strong. They're very strong. We saw last night from the substitutions that, if you bring on Marcus Rashford for Anthony Gordon, you're not dropping quality. If you bring on sort of Bukayo Saka for Madueke, you're not dropping in quality. If you bring on Mark Gay for John Stones, there's not a drop in quality. So for me, I think what England have is, there's only probably, I would say, Jude Bellingham, Declan Rice, and Harry Kane, maybe Jordan Pickford I would add into that as well, are the 4 that you really wouldn't want to lose from a point of view of injury. The rest of the players that are in the squad, I'm not saying they're easily replaceable, but there is a player who is sort of second and in behind them who are breathing down the necks. And there isn't that bigger drop in quality, if at all. So my view is that other than those sort of 3 or 4 players that are named, there isn't that bigger drop off. But in terms of England have got Harry Kane, who I think is world class. Maybe France, Portugal, Spain have got maybe a 1 or 2 more that you could put into that category.
OK, all right, finally then, you've watched every single team play. I'm worried about what you're going to say now then. Who do you think is going to go all the way?
Look, I've said France before the tournament that I thought they would win it. I'm not going to change that now just because of one game of each team. I don't think that we've seen enough yet. Obviously, Spain have had a shock. We thought that, I thought they would be getting to the latter stage of the tournament. I still think they will. It's very, very early. We know Argentina lost their last in the last World Cup in the group phase and went on to win it. This is a massive tournament from a point of view of sort of games and how long there is to go. It's not even started yet. So I'm not going to change anything that I said previously right now. It's too early in the tournament, and it's certainly too early to say that England are going to go and win it. I know that's probably what people want to hear, but
Yeah,
it was
well,
a really
yes.
good. It was a really no, it was a really good start for us last night. We've got a really good team. We've got a good group of players. We've got an excellent manager, but there's a long way to go.
All right, all right. We'll come back to you after a few games then. Thanks, Gary, as always. Lovely to speak
Thank
to you.
you.